Hi, guys. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm here with Dr. Monique. I'm going to have to ask you to pronounce your last name. I should have done that beforehand. Who is
It's
a Navy
okay.
spouse and entrepreneur. And I'm so thrilled to chat with you because there's so many things we need to talk about. So let's just go ahead and get started. Welcome, Monique.
Perfect. Thanks for having me, Sue. And my last name is pronounced Ekundayo. So many people ask
Exactly the way
that
it's spelled.
question. Exactly,
Very
exactly.
nice.
I get that
Um,
question quite often.
Yay, so I don't feel so embarrassed. I'm so happy to have you here because I have questions, hopefully at the end. I told Monique already that at the end of this, because she already has a PhD, I'm going to ask her about, like how she knew to pursue a PhD, how she chose her school, and what recommendations she would have for you guys, anybody who's looking to pursue that. So keep that in the back of your mind. So, can you share a bit more about your educational background and what you did before pivoting and venturing down the entrepreneurship route? I mean, with your PhD in business management, what did you hope to be doing at this point?
That's a great question. And when I initially went in and applied to the program, my first thought was entrepreneurship off the bat. I said to myself, why go and attain such a degree to work for somebody else? And so I think the end goal has always been to work for myself. And so that's why I specifically chose business. I felt like through the tenets and the principles and frameworks of business, that kind of creates the mold that you need, or at least a foundation to pull from to create, a viable business. Um, it definitely, in my studies, in general business, you learn a little bit of everything. You learn accounting, you learn marketing, you learn, you name it. I mean, ethics, you learn it. And so I really wanted to have a full grasp of what it took to not only start my own business, but to start a viable and a competitive business.
Very cool. So you're a research person.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And actually, all of my degrees are business. And so undergrad, I went to San Diego State, go Aztecs. And so my undergrad is business administration, my master's is organizational management, and then my PhD is business management general.
Very cool. And so is that, I mean, I know that you want to start a business, but what was it that made you kind of decide that you need to create a nonprofit? What led you to starting your nonprofit?
That's a great question. And so my overarching degree is business management. My specialization is in strategy and innovation. And I get this question quite often. And so when I went in to do my research, the title of my dissertation is The Influence of Organizational Learning on Knowledge Management Media. I'm sorry, we're gonna have to edit that. The title of my dissertation is The Influence of Knowledge Management on Organizational Innovation Mediated by Organizational Learning. And so, in very layman's terms, what I was looking to ascertain was how to get employees or individuals within the workplace to think and problem solve outside of the box without following a SOP or doing things the way that they've always been done, whether right or wrong. How can we strategize as an individual within the workplace to positively and favorably affect the bottom line without being robotic about it, and creating new ideas and generating new methodologies that create a competitive edge for the organization? And so that was the ideation for me that formed my constructs for my dissertation. And from there, the research then ensued. And so I, researched organizational innovation. I surveyed people within the workforce that had innovation within their title. The question was how I got to my nonprofit. I led with the story of how I got my dissertation title because that is what I was studying. When I got my socio-demographic data points, it showed that less than 5% of people of color um, fulfill the space or occupy the space of innovation within the workplace professionally. And for me, I was shocked. And so, oftentimes I think people think that innovation is a buzzword or, kind of a phrase, a catchphrase within the workplace. But now within the US, there are 21 accredited colleges and universities that offer primary degrees in innovation.
Oh,
When I started school, it was only an emphasis or a specialization. Now you can get a bachelor's in innovation or a master's in innovation. And so when I got the socio-demographic data back, showing that less than 5% of people um, of color occupy the space, I said, that's a problem within the research. That's a problem within our society. We need to diversify innovation. Within the last 3 years, I would say that in organizations in general, there's been a huge emphasis on DEI and B, for a myriad of reasons. But what the research has found, and whether empirical or professional, diversity creates, differences of opinions. It creates varying perspectives. It creates ideas and methodologies that people haven't thought of before, because everybody's idea is considered, not just a traditional perspective that has been considered historically. And it is to the betterment of the organization.
Absolutely.
And so if we're considering DEI in every other space in our organization to maintain a competitive advantage, why would we not do that in innovation? Especially with it being an up and coming and high rising, high growth career field. And so that's how I arrived at the mission and the kind of vision of my nonprofit. And it has all been history since there.
No, and has it been like a field of daisies since you started your business? Like, because you were so well researched and because you knew exactly what you wanted to do and you had the credentials to back you up and the research, was it just like doors opening, angels singing, easy? Has it been an easy journey?
I tell people all the time, I thought to myself, if I could complete a PhD, I could do anything. But the beast of entrepreneurship is a whole different playing field.
Yeah, preaching to the choir, sister.
Oh
Preaching
my
to the
God.
choir.
And I will say that I think what helps entrepreneurs is the passion that they have behind whatever it is they're looking to do.
Right.
And so that gives you the tenacity to see it through, but it is absolutely not easy. I tell people all the time, the first year was the year of implementation. And so you have to get your EIN, you have to, if you're a nonprofit, you have to get your 501c3, you have to get your charitable solicitation for whatever state you're in, or multi-state. And so there's a lot of moving parts with starting an organization. And then I tell the people the second year was the year of expansion. And so it's getting the right people in the right roles to help move the organization forward and to move the needle forward. It's learning what grants support your mission, that you can apply to, where you're not just spinning your wheels and getting no's from every sponsor and donor and grantor out there. It's finding the networks that will fuel kind of expansion in that regard in your organization. I definitely find that within the National Capital Region, there is no shortage of events and summits and conferences and opportunities to connect. But you have to pick and choose very strategic and selectively which ones work for you. You
Right.
can't not be everywhere at every time. And so, as an entrepreneur, just finding not the organizations, but finding the opportunities and the networking mixers out there that will provide you with people that are aligned with your mission are key. It helps you save time, money, energy, and stress.
Especially energy and stress, because you're right. We have an embarrassment of riches, but sometimes I find that I get analysis paralysis. Like there's so many things you could do,
Right.
so many places you can go that you're like, forget, I'm just not going to choose. And
Right.
that doesn't help us at all. But I love how you stress the importance of mentors to your career and business growth. Cause we had a chance to talk ahead of time. And I mean, this is something that we ask almost everybody about because this is something that you, all high achieving people, emphasize, which is the importance of mentors.
Right.
So can you share a little bit more about that? I mean, how did you find them, connect with them? How did you recognize when it was time to connect with additional mentors?
And so I will speak from the perspective of a military spouse. And one thing I can appreciate specifically about this region is that it's very military family friendly. And so
Right.
when I first set out to start my business, somehow, and I don't know if it was boots to business, somehow I found out about SBA, Small Business Administration for small businesses. And through SBA, I was able to find SCORE. And so, I kind of did my research and saw what it was about. I was immediately connected with the SCORE mentor. My first SCORE mentor didn't really pan out. And so I was reassigned another one. They were very helpful in that regard, and, really aiming to connect me with someone that would kind of help me find what was necessary in order to kind of just tackle everyday problems. The second mentor that I was assigned, he was amazing. And we still are in touch to this day. We did a monthly meetup for the first year. And then subsequent that, it was kind of on an as needed basis. But through SBA Score mentorship, you're able to utilize their workshops for free. And so there's a lot of kind of financial intelligence workshops that they provide, digital marketing, how to start a nonprofit. They send you out kind of a checklist per the state that you're in. DC and Maryland doesn't vary too greatly. Virginia, I'm not quite sure how it works in terms of like having your ducks in a row for a nonprofit. But the SCORE mentor was huge in that regard. And then I also am a part of ACP, so American Corporate Partnerships, and I was assigned a mentorship through them as well. That was more on a professional side, but my mentor also was an entrepreneur herself, and so she was able to kind of share some of those golden nuggets in terms of what she experienced in her entrepreneurship journey through mentorship as well. And so just through the military community, I was able to identify very strong mentors that helped guide me along the path for my journey through my nonprofit experience, and it's been great.
No, I think that's awesome. And I love that reminder that with SCORE, if you have a mentor that doesn't align, because if you join an organization and they assign you someone, that you can always ask for a different one. I
Right,
think that's important. I think that um, we're so programmed to just take whatever we can get.
right,
But that's a good reminder. And
right.
because we have you here and you do have your PhD, I thought I'd ask a question that we haven't had an opportunity to ask any of other highlights yet, which is, it's a commitment to go and get a PhD in terms of time, money, and just time. Time enough. How do you know, like for spouses out there who are considering it, how do you know when it's time to think about getting a PhD or like what career fields? I mean, like, is it for everybody? And then how do you know what schools to go to? Where do you even get started? Because I know there are organizations out there that pay for you to get a PhD.
Right,
I know that there are schools out there that might work better with you because they might be more hybrid. And so it's
right.
not all in person. How do you even start researching? And you're the researcher, so I'm asking the exact right person.
So the funny story behind me pursuing a PhD is that my husband was at MPS studying for his MBA at the time. And I was like, hey, everybody's going to do homework around here. Like,
That's how
so,
I got my master's. My husband was doing his homework. I'm like, I'm doing it too. Let's go do it together.
right. And so I don't necessarily know that I knew what I was getting myself into when we were having this big, competitive run. But I started my PhD right when he started his MBA. And so that was kind of the start of it. But again, as I said, I had always studied business. And so for me, it was just the natural transition to complete a PhD in business. Now, the selection of the school for me had to be asynchronous online because at that time we were moving a lot. And so while I would have loved to do brick and mortar, and I've had experience in both, I did undergrad brick and mortar, it just really wasn't in the cards. And so I completed my PhD through Capella University. I have an aunt who is a retired colonel in the Army, and she went through their program and had really good words and good feedback about the school, about the institute. And so I was like, well, let me check it out. And so I kind of looked into it, and it worked with our moving, it worked with my schedule. And so that's how I kind of went about it. Now, for those listening right now that are looking to do their PhD through Capella, I know they have like a flex path program. I think it's what they're known for, but that is not in the doctorate program. Like, I think they only do that for masters and bachelors. And so I just kind of, in full transparency, want to put that out there. But I that's how I began studying, and it has been quite the journey since. At the start of my PhD, I was in the middle of planning for my wedding for 185 people. Um, from the time of starting my PhD to completing, we moved 4 times.
Oh my
I
gosh.
planned a wedding, had a child, worked full time. Um, you name it, I did it. And so for anyone thinking that, going into a program like this is kind of just like second nature, I highly encourage it for anyone who wants to pursue their doctor. I say go for it if that's what you want to do, but it is no walk in the park. And oddly enough, I was listening to a podcast this morning that spoke to kind of the misconceptions of going for your doctorate degree. And basically, the analogy they gave was, when you're doing your master's and your bachelor's, you're kind of proving that you understand concepts and literature, and repeating kind of findings that are already out there. When you go for your doctorate degree, you're creating new knowledge. And so the playing field is different in that regard. And that's the delineating factor. You're no longer showing a competence or a proficiency of what you read. You are adding to a body of knowledge that is not already there. And so that's what distinguishes someone that has a doctorate degree from another learner, because you have to analyze, synthesize, evaluate. There is an acronym for it, I think STEAM, synthesize, evaluate, analyze, and the methodology, I think is the M. I can't remember what the M is, but anyways, critical thought is imperative when going for a doctorate degree. And so you kind of have to think beyond what your natural instinct is to think about a particular topic, and add to the body. And so I say do it. I know a lot of spouses that consider going for their doctorate degrees or are in a program right now. It's doable, but it's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of dedication, all of the things that I listed that I did while I was studying for my doctorate degree. There were a lot of things that I missed with my little one when he was very young. And that was kind of hard. And one of the stories, and I think it's important to tell this story to just kind of give a glimpse of what it's like. I remember when my baby, he wasn't even 1 yet, because I remember he was crawling. And, I had an assignment that was due, a deadline. And so he crawled to me, and he goes, Mama. And I turned around and I was like, give me a minute. Like, I have to shoot this email off. Just give me a minute. And he crawled away crying. And I'm trying to keep it together telling this story right now. And I remember in that moment, I said to myself, when I get done with this degree, it better be worth it, because there is so much that I missed, when he was, before he was 1, pursuing this degree. And at that point, I was like, I started this, I have to finish it. And I'm definitely the type of person that has to see things through. And I don't just see things through, but I see things through through a lens of quality. And so I never just put anything together. For me, it was like I had to make sure that, whatever I was sending off at that moment, all T's crossed, all I's dotted. And when I saw that expression on my little one's eyes, I was like, ugh.
Yes, but now we're doing this quickly so that you can go to a soccer game. So, I mean, I feel
Right.
you are paying it back because
Right.
that was a priority for you. And so, like, just in the short time I've gotten to know you, I know that you are paying it back.
Yes, yes. So, but yeah.
So, no, that's amazing. And, we do these military spouse highlights to inspire other spouses. And I have to admit, you're inspiring me because I've been thinking about my PhD for many, many years now. And actually, what's holding me back is the fear of rejection. So I love what you said about the podcast and what you learned, because I think that is, yeah, we do have contributions to make. And I love, because I think that's the one thing about PhD is what would you get it in? And you're right, like, where do I have contributions to make? So I really appreciate the guidance. I really appreciate the inspiration. And I'm so happy to have spent some time with you today. And I know that there are other military spouses out there who have lots of great stories. So we hope that you will consider putting in your own military spouse highlight. We'd love to chat with you. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank our friends over at USAA for making these conversations possible. I'm having the best time talking to
Yes.
all you amazing military spouses. So Monique, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank
And I'll leave you with the last words.
I would just say that, for military spouses, it is very important for us to live in all of our glory. I think a lot of times we don't realize the powerhouses that we are. I mean, we wear so many hats. And I think a lot of times we're kind of viewed as like the supporter of those who are fulfilling the mission every day. But we ourselves are just capable of so many things. And so never have imposter syndrome. Never think that you can't. You'd be amazed at what you can once put yourself forward to doing it. And so I just say, all military spouses out there, keep up the great work.
I couldn't have said it better. So with that, we will say goodbye, and I hope you join us again next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.